About midway through the week, as I was pondering this love passage, this particular passage with Mary, it occurred to me I was answering an important question once asked by the group Foreigner. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. I want to feel what love is. I know you can show me. So, what does... No. No, please. It occurred to me, and as I sat with that all week long, it's what we all want to know. What does love look like? What does love feel like? How can we know love in our everyday life? It's a word we bandy about the seasons. I love spring. I love fall. I love winter. I love the solstice. Today is the solstice. Winter officially begins today. It's the shortest day of the year, just in case you were wondering. These are all things that we can... I love my new car. I love my new church. I love my new parsonage. We say love all the time. I love sweet potatoes. I love steak. No, I don't anymore. The doctor told me no more red meat, so it's a sad reality. Maybe I still love them, but what does love mean? What is it really, really all about? And I think that the people of Israel in the first century wanted to know that very same thing. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. You know, you've shown all my ancestors. You showed up and delivered them from Egypt. You showed up and brought forth kings like David, who ruled despite all of his mistakes. Some of them were really big mistakes. He was a man after your own heart. I want to know what love is, what it looks like in my life. How can I live out that love? And so God decides, conspires to make it so, to show us what love looks like. It's not just a fire on a mountain. It's not just the 10 Commandments. Those are all nice minimum standards for living. But I want to show what love is. I want you to feel it in your life. I want you to know what it looks like. So as I was remarking to someone the other day, because God was so interested in showing us, God broke one of the 10 Commandments himself. I've got the 10 Commandments, but I'm going to break one. I'm going to make an image of myself in the person of Jesus. But we're not quite there yet. How are we going to birth this Jesus into the world? Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about God, one of the words that comes to my mind is power. God has power. You know, who else could make the whole universe and decide what's going to happen and when it's going to happen and who it's going to happen to? But God, think of power. And when I think of power, I also look around in society. It's power over. It's power to control all the sources of things and make things the way I want them to be. But that's not the kind of power that God exercises to show us love. Because power is not love. Power is power. And so he sends one of the archangels, we're told, whose name is Gabriel, which means the Lord is my strength, or God is my strength, or I serve a strong God. It means any of those kinds of things. To talk with Mary. Shows up to have a conversation. Now, you and I assume, which is a dangerous thing to do about this story, that Mary didn't have a choice in the matter. And that would be a big mistake. Because you see, the one thing God guards above all else in our lives is our ability to choose for ourselves. God guards that with God's eternal life. We get to choose. We could talk about it again when it comes time to have Good Friday services. We got to choose what we were going to do about Jesus. And when it came time to stand up for him, all of us kind of shrunk back into the background, and he died. We get to choose. How will I respond to God's love for me. So Gabriel shows up, as you might imagine, very surprised. Mary is like, it's one of the things that happens when angels show up. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear going on. Almost the first words out of any angel's mouth is, hey, don't be afraid. We always have those really pretty angels, that just float along and look really. If you read a description, I encourage you, pull out several passages from the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and read descriptions of angels. You saw one show up, it's like a dragon shows up with 75 wings and, hiding their face, and they've got these, it's scary. Shows up to chat with Mary. Mary, you've already found favor with God. Not you're going to find favor if you say yes, but you're already on my good list. You don't have to worry about the naughty list. You're already on the good list. You have already shown yourself somehow as a young woman, and we believe Mary may have been somewhere between 12 and 14. She was probably very young. In her short life, she had the opportunity to show up in a way that God favored her. God already said, wow, that Mary. Gabriel, go talk to her. And so he does. You've found favor with God. God would like you to do something for you. Now, the truth of the matter is, the biblical message for the most part, we see some people who didn't show up for God. We tell those stories sometimes, but most of the stories that get told are the people that showed up, who actually said yes, who responded. We get some stories about people didn't do so well in their response, but I don't know, was Mary the very first one that got asked? I'm going to ask God about that. There could have been 500 no's already. The only reason we hear about Mary, maybe not the only reason, but one of the reasons we hear about Mary is because she said yes. She had a choice. God asked her a big ask. Now you think, it's kind of cool to have children and all that kind of stuff. She wasn't married. She was engaged to somebody else, and God's asking her to have a baby. That is dangerous, risky business in the first century. Engaged to somebody else, that's a stonable offense, by the way, just so you know. We don't know who the dad is. We take you outside the city and stone you to death. Not a very nice way to go. Not a very nice way to go. I'm asking you to take a risk, but it's all on you. It's all on you to decide if love is worth risking. Are you willing to give it a shot for me? And, Mary's response is not a yes in the traditional yes or no. Let it be so. Let what you've said, God, be so. How can this be? How can it be that you're going to do it? What is the process by which I have to carry this out? That ought to be one of our first questions when God is asking us to do something big in life, to do what God desires in our lives. So how would you like me to accomplish this? How would you like me to do it? There are 1,000 ways I can think of. Is it okay if I do it any way I want to? Can I start the sermon with a foreigner song? And Katie shakes her head no, but I did anyway. I did. I said, God, is it okay? And God's like silent. So I was like, okay, I'm taking silence. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I did. Thanks, June. The truth is, God is always asking these questions of us in the little places in our lives. We hear about Mary because this was a big one. This is Jesus. For more on the story, join us Wednesday night when we do Christmas Eve. But her yes mattered. Now, essentially, until she said yes to any one of us here in this room, Mary was nobody. Mary was nobody. And sometimes we feel like nobodies. I mean, the universe is infinite. There's so many people in the world, billions of them. What difference do I make? I'm sure for a brief moment, Mary asked the same question. Not only is it risky, but what difference can I make? And the answer is, you don't know until you say yes. You cannot know what difference you make until you say yes to what God's asking for your life. When you look at yourself, when you see who you are, God's already given you this pile of gifts. I have to be honest with all of you. I don't know all of you well enough to know what all of your gifts are. I know what some of your gifts are. Because I've, 6 months in, I've learned what some of them are. Some of you can sing amazing songs, but some of you lead in amazing ways. Some of you serve in quiet, simple ways behind the scenes we don't even know about. Some of you say yes to doing things at the last minute, like the Pasakis when I needed them to light the Advent candle this morning. 5 minutes before worship, I'm like, Katie, I forgot to tell you something. The person I asked to do this told me on Wednesday or Tuesday when you weren't here, no. So how do you and Greg feel about, you and Greg and Alex feel about lighting the candle? And they were like, yes, I'll do it. If she hadn't said yes, I'm sure I would have found some way to light the candles, call fire from heaven, but that usually melts all the candles. It's not pretty. But you see, it's those simple yeses. When we ask, how will I do it? Well, I'll show you. Just trust me. Can you trust me that much? And maybe that's part of why God asked Mary. Because what she had shown in her first 12 to 14 years of life was she was somebody who could trust God enough to say yes. And her yes made a difference. If Mary had said no, we probably would never have heard Mary's story. Might have been Gertrude or somebody else. I don't know their name. But Mary did say yes. And there are lots of quiet ways every one of you in this room gets invited to say yes in your everyday life. And when you say yes in your everyday life, somebody gets to know what love is. Somebody gets to feel what love is. Because your yes changes what you think of as your little corner of the world. But you need to realize your little corner of the world is a piece of the infinite that God is trying to change. And God changes it one yes at a time. Will your life be a story of saying yes? This season, this Advent preparation season, the little tiny piece of this big, beautiful circle that's on the floor here. Will this Advent be the Advent you say yes? It's at the bottom. Some of you who are in the back probably can't see it. It's in the bottom. Come after worship and take a look at it. It's a beautiful thing on the floor right here. This Advent and every day of your life, God is asking, will you say yes? Will you say yes to greeting your neighbor with kindness? Because you never know how that kindness is going to change that person's day. Will you give to the ministry of hope? Will you volunteer for the ministry of hope? So that even when it snowed last week, more than 150 people still showed up to get that card. And there were people in the parking lot to give it away. Couldn't give a full breakfast because it was snow. But we could give that card. When you say yes to serving here at Doolin or out in the community, that yes makes a difference. You make a difference. The story of Christmas, if it's nothing else, is that God works through human hands. Yes, the human hands of Jesus and the human hands of every single one of you. Will this season be a season of yes for you? Will this Sunday be a season of yes for you? Will you be willing to show up for God? I suspect most of you will not be asked to bear God's Son. I'm hoping not me. It doesn't even work that way. But God does ask us to show when we show up, we make a difference. When we love, we make a difference. So, this season of love, when everybody is asking the question, I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. I want to feel what love is. I know you and show me. God says, in the same way we ask that of God, God asks that of us. Can you be the answer to God's prayer for humanity and show what God's love looks like every day? You'll trip and fall. I do all the time. But give it your very best shot. Even if it involves singing a foreigner song in front of people without accompaniment. You know, you never know. You never know what the little things will do. That'll be the last time ever at Doolin that I sing a foreigner song. Did you notice how I said that? God might ask me next Sunday. Well, you said you'd never do it again. Guess what I need? In any case, be the love God needs you to be in this season. Say yes. And let God use you. Let God use you in changing the world. I want to invite you to remain standing as we join together in confessing. So let us